Friends, from Armenians I will take some other topic, which is quite different from the topic, the first topic which was presented here in this session, but having some elements because very we also talked about some building construction work in Kerala. I will be talking about certain aspects which have typically been neglected by medieval historians when they talk about architecture. The theme of my paper is building construction under Mughals and economic perspective. Before I start my very short presentation, I would like to apologize that because of my engagement with Indian History Congress, I was actually unable to complete my paper, and that is one of the reasons why the paper is not being distributed here. In fact, when we talk about economic perspective vis-a-vis building construction, there are at least 6 things which one should keep in mind. One is the labor dynamics, who were the people who were involved, what were their social categories, their economic status, and so on. Secondly, one should talk about the resource utilizations. From where was the material coming? What was the cost of the material which was being used in the building construction activity? We always miss it. We talk about a beautiful barge, not mentioning from where all those and how much cost. I would incidentally just point out that in this regard, there is only one article which has been written, and that is by Professor Shirik Pusri, where she has tried to calculate the total cost of building production during one reign, the reign of Shah Jahan, and came to the conclusion that it was only 10% of the total GDP of that period that was being utilized in the construction of all the buildings during the reign of Shah Jahan, including the Taj and the Red Fort and so on and so forth. So perhaps that is the only work which has been done on this aspect. Apart from that, everyone has just talked about the architectural beauty of the government and nothing else. Thirdly, all this should also be related with the economic policy of the Mughals and the patronage which was being given to those who were involved in this construction activity. Now we talk about the type of monuments which were built. Over a period of time, we say that the period of Akbar was the period when the Mughal architecture came into establishment. We talk about what changes occurred during the period of Jahangir and then ultimately Shah Jahan. But what we forget is that there is enough information in our sources. There are Persian primary sources which tell us that out of all these building activities, how many of them were by the nobles, how many of them were by the merchants, how many of them were by the imperial authority. And we are also informed by these many sources about the nature of the constructions, whether they were religious structures. Today, when we look back in time and go and visit the monuments, we are sitting in a city, Warangal. The fort has almost disappeared, the temple stands. Only for one reason, that temples and religious structures like mosques and tombs were maintained generation after generation, and that is why they continue. But the secular activity, those buildings, for example, we get information from Pensacola. One of the Dutch merchants who had visited Jahangir spoke. He was an indigo merchant. He visited for the Sikri, he visited our Delhi, and he has left behind his account, his remonstrance, which unfortunately only a section of it has been translated into English. The other part remains only in Dutch and thus inaccessible to a large number of Indian historians. Now there it is given the type of constructions which were taking place, the type, the nature of the cities which were there. For example, how there was an intermixing of population. There is a reference of the houses of adjacent. Who is the owner of which house? For example, even on the Yamuna bank, which Haveli belongs to which noble, Rajput, along with the Turani, and so forth. And he also discusses that all the retainers of those nobles whose Haveli is there, just besides them are a large number of houses of those who are the retainers of this family. So much so that ultimately, instead of just a Haveli, a whole Mohalla ward, which was named after the noble house. These are the aspects which can give us much information if one tries to work on them. But I'm sorry to say, I'm also a medieval historian, and I have also worked in architecture, but we have generally neglected these aspects which have to be taken into account. The policies of the Mughals also dictated what type of structures were being constructed. So that has also to be taken into account. We know that sometimes when we talk about that in a certain period, it was only the mosques and religious structures, mosques and tombs were built. We forget to mention along with them that these same mosques and religious structures like tombs, they were being constructed by masons and craftsmen, none of whom was a Muslim. In fact, all the Mughal monuments which survive till date, if you ask us who is the actual architect, you ask about any Ottoman building, the Ottomans will probably tell you such a man was the architect, and these were the people who were involved in the construction. But once you come to the Mughal Empire, adjectives are used for those who had built this structure, sometimes naming the superintendent in charge, a nobleman who perhaps knew nothing about architecture, but he was having a supervisory role. His name is mentioned. But who were the actual builders? These sources are missing their names. But fortunately for us, and unfortunately for the historians of today, who have not paid attention to that, is that these artisans and master craftsmen, they do not depend upon us to record their names. They have themselves put up their names on the individual stone pieces which go on to build these monuments. In fact, I had carried out a work way back, and I had presented that labor in Indian History Congress itself, the stone cutters' marks. And I was able to find more than 200 signatures, names of the master craftsmen who were involved in the construction, say, of a Tipu city. And all those signatures were in Nagari, none of them in Persian, and all those names were non-Muslim names. All names, none of them, I don't know which, I can't define their religion, that is why I'm calling them non-Muslim. They were in 21st century's term Hindus. Like, some of them also mention that they were peasants who in their free time were working on these structures. Right? So these are the type of information which I think, I'm not claiming that my paper is having all that. I'm just pointing out that these are the things which, if one has to go revisit the economic history history of India, these are the aspects that now we should pay attention to. Then there is the question of trade and commerce. Trade and commerce, I would say, that without trade and commerce, no structure could have been built. We have references that when we, for example, at Agra, there is red sandstone, but there is no, mine of white marble. There is no repository from where you would get semi-precious stones. We know that Taj Mahal is famous for two things: pizza dura, semi-precious stones of various colors. All these stones were being imported, transported from elsewhere into Agra, and then this building resulted. Makrana was one of the mines through which these stones. Now, from where do we get this information? The Kagaz-e-Kham. Those, there are a large number of documents in Bikaner archives and in a large number of other places which tell us, there is a paper I will just mention during the inauguration, one of the books of a late historian has been given an award, late Dr. Rezavi AHS. There is another book, a collection of his articles, which was published posthumously after his death, but more than 1 year ago, contains a number of his papers which deal with those documents which give us information from where the Mughals were importing not only the white marble but the other material like the sagon wood, which was used in the creation. Now, one of our students can ask, what was the need of sagon wood in a building like Taj Mahal? Remember that there are a number of sources from Shah Jahan's period who tell us in some detail how the foundations of these structures were laid. And they tell us that wells were dug, and then within that well, these teak wood and sagon wood beams, they were inserted, and then when these solidified, on the top of that you had an even platform which was created. So just below itself are foundations which are resting on deep wells which are full of teak and sagon wood. And the documents which I am referring to, they are there. For example, there are documents known as Arsatta Imarati. Arsattas are documents which deal with all type of Arsat means 68 or something. 68 doesn't signify anything except the fact that many type of things are being included. So one category of these Arsatta documents are known as Arsatta Imarati, which provides us with two types of information. One, the wages and salaries. And secondly, the cost of the building material which is being bought or being made. For example, bricks, or for example, the stone carvings. There are certain things which are made on the spot from where they are found and then transported. That means that these documents also contain information regarding the cost of transportation while bringing it from Rajputana down to Agra. All these informations are there before us. There is one article I would refer. I'm sorry, I said I won't take much time, but I'm taking some time. There is an article by Reconstructing Technology where he talks about building technology itself, and there he writes that the introduction of two basic materials, bricks and lime mortar, in fact revolutionized the entire work of construction. For example, he says that brick and lime mortar democratized building construction activity. Now, all those buildings which were earlier being made only of stone, and stone had to be transported and it had to be mined. I mean, it was costing you much, and only people who had some birth could construct their buildings. But now, brick was something which could be made out of clay just near the site where the house is being built, without any cost except for the cost of the labor. And then lime mortar, you just buy lime, those stones of lime, make a pit, draw some water, mix both the things together, you have lime. So, according to Rezavi, it is after the introduction of both these two technologies, and that is why I say that one of the aspects which he should pay attention is the technology. These two technologies suddenly opened up the work of building construction, and from now on, even people like you and me start constructing houses. So much so that during the Mughal period, there are a large number of documents. For example, there are a series of documents in National Archives known as Surat documents, Campaign documents, Sambal documents, many such categories. There you have Devanamas, Baiganamas, sale deeds, mortgage deeds, and so on and so forth, which list not only the cost of production, the cost of the building which is being now transferred from one to another, but also the plan of that, and what material has been used in that particular type of building. And the last aspect which I think we should consider in this is the economic impact of all these building construction activities. Perhaps I have hinted enough that once the new type of technologies came into existence, one of the big impact was that now within the society, it was not only one class of people who could own, a ceiling on their head, but all type of people now started building houses, and the construction activity was much more democratized than before. So lastly, I would just point out that apart from our Satta Imarati, we have two type of documents, two type of sources we can say, which are Mughal sources. One in the form of salary slips, where what type of salary was given to these people, and certain sources like Ain Akbari and Mirate Akbari. Ain gives, full chapter on the cost of the material used for building construction, mentions what type of categories of artisans are involved in this activity, and what type of wages are generally to be given. And then compare those wages and those costs which are given in the Ain Akbari with the source which I just mentioned, Mirate Ahmadi, which belongs to the period of Aurangzeb. For post-Aurangzeb period, we have Arsatta Imarati and such documents from Rajasthan which take us further, and if you take all these three together, then we can have a series how the prices and wages kept on changing. Thank you very much.